Am I live? I think I'm live. So this is a bit of a reality check, folks. I have just had a conversation with an amazing lady called Jo Whip, and Jo does a lot of work around human trafficking education and really fighting the cause against human trafficking. And I just saw that, I can't remember her first name, but I remember her second name, Maxwel. She's just been sentenced to 20 years on the Jeffrey Epstein case. But here's the thing, is that children and vulnerable people will never ever be safe until the lists of the people who are paying for the services to abuse children, women, boys, unless those people are held accountable and prosecuted and no longer protected, children will never ever be safe, because there is such denial about human trafficking all over the world. People think that human trafficking happens in poorer countries. It doesn't happen on their doorstep. They are completely oblivious to what goes on behind closed doors. And here's the thing, is that your children will never be safe because those people who are committing the crimes, men mainly, and women, let's not forget the women, because there are a lot of women and they get off really easily, way too easily, for the crimes that they commit, horrendous crimes they commit. These people who commit these crimes are your brother, your father, your husband. I used to work, God, it must have been about 30 years ago now. I used to go out on the streets and I used to give sexual health advice to, it was actually all women, there weren't any guys in the area that I was working, on the patch that I was working on. But I used to go out and give sexual health advice to, they were called back then, they liked to be called sex workers, sealed with a SWARC. The project was called Sealed with a Loving Kiss, which was named by the women. And, you know, I wish I could film the people who come up to use the services. Professionals. There is no stereotypical picture of a guy that comes up and uses the services for his own gratification. Now, there's part of me that says there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you are talking about human trafficking, when you are talking about children, women that are vulnerable, that are being used specifically for human trafficking, and they don't have a choice and they are being completely exploited. This is where the danger is that while Maxwel has been sentenced to 20 years, I think it is, or 25 years and 5 years for good behaviour or whatever she gets, whatever it is, unless that list is exposed, those people are prosecuted and people know who they are in the community, then your children will never ever be safe. They will never be safe. That's the reality. But no one talks about it. Everybody seems to just brush it under the carpet. We were having this conversation about, there's I was listening to an FBI agent not so long ago, to a podcast interview, and he was talking about human trafficking is so bad that in the games, the football games in America, that what people will do is that they will bring children, women who are human trafficked to the surrounding area of where the game is being held, and then the guys will go out during the game, meet whatever order it is that they've put in, to have sex with whatever age, whatever colour, whatever their desired pleasure is. They'll come out of the game, do what it is they want to do, and then they will go back into the game and watch the rest of the game. And yet those guys aren't prosecuted. Those guys' names aren't out in the public domain, and they should be. They absolutely should be. If you want your children to be safe, if you want to create a younger generation of healthier adults, then they have to be prosecuted. Their names have to be out in the public domain. They have to be named and shamed. And Joe was saying that there was someone that she was speaking to, and he said it's just as easy to order a pizza as it is to put an order in for a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old. And that's quite hard actually to get your head around. But here's the thing that's even harder to get your head around, is that person, they know who they are, but they haven't been prosecuted. They haven't been brought to trial. So this could be your father, it could be your brother, it could be your boyfriend, it could be your husband. When I was working on that project 30 years ago, you know, I'd look at some of the guys that would turn up and I would just be, bloody hell. Your partner has absolutely no idea what you are up to. And actually this was really clever because this was going on in the morning and not in the evening, when people assume this sort of thing takes place. People assume that people go out, I think probably because of the films, and they look for sex at night, and they pick up people at night. But actually this was happening, the most business was generated in the morning. Sneaky, very, very sneaky. Not in the evening, not late at night. Because obviously maybe that would raise suspicion for people, but it would be in the morning. That's when most of the business would be done. And I've got to say this again, your children will never be safe, ever. They will never be safe unless those people's names are released. And the Maxwell case, the Epstein and Maxwell case, while it's great, yeah, she's been sentenced, that's absolutely brilliant, although personally I don't think it's long enough. I think 20 years is, for the horrific crimes that have taken place, isn't long enough. But I do think that the people who are involved in that case, the guys who are involved in that case, those names need to be published. They need to be held accountable for the crimes it is that they have committed. And until that happens, your children will never be safe. It's as simple as that. And it's not just the vulnerable within society, which is how this has been largely spoken about, that, you know, they always went for the vulnerable kids, that they were in poverty, and this isn't how this works anymore. Might have been how it worked 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but it's definitely not how it works now. This is kids, adults from all backgrounds. It's an epidemic. It is a problem. It just amazes me. Joe has got me on fire this morning, for sure. She's in bed now because she's in America. I think she's in America. I've put her details below so you can connect with her. And if you want to get involved with the cause around human trafficking, you can reach out to her. What was I going to say? Oh, I've forgotten. I've lost my train. Oh no. Oh yeah, this is what I was going to say. So it amazes me that every now and again I will see a case to do with Disneyland and the paedophile network that goes on with inside Disneyland. I said to a friend this morning, I said if I had kids I'd never ever take them to Disneyland, because I have seen so many cases of child abuse to do with Disneyland that it just seems to breed and attract some very sinister sinister individuals. But your kids are never going to be safe until people start fighting for those names to be released. Not just to do with the Maxwell case, but to do with any case. And trust me, it is your brother, your father, your husband. It is the people that you least suspect that are carrying out these crimes. Which is hard. It's hard to get your head around, isn't it? Really, to think that someone you love could commit such horrendous crimes. But it is definitely going on, and it is definitely on a massive scale. We don't seem to really touch it back home in the UK. I worked in police custody. I think it was for a couple of years as an appropriate adult, which means that I would sit in on the police interviews, and help the person go through that interview process to make sure that the police were doing whatever it is that they should have been doing. Great experience, mind-blowing, but I don't ever remember one case that was to do with trafficking or sex work, which means that they just left it alone. They didn't touch it. They didn't deal with what the issues were. It wasn't perceived as being a big enough problem, which is interesting, because there are absolutely problems and issues associated with that level of, I was going to say work then, but that doesn't seem right. I guess there are two different things. There's the sexual exploitation and trafficking, and then there is the consensual sex work. And I guess it could be nowadays, because I'm out of touch, to be fair, I'm out of touch with reality, so I can't, but I should suspect it's now a very thin line. Interestingly enough, the women that I was working with all those years ago, they, a lot of them didn't have guys who were looking after them. They were literally there to, some of them were just there to make an extra bob. Look, everyone's got a unique story. Everybody's story is unique to them. But I think it's become more complicated. But I'm going to say it again, your children will never be safe until people are held accountable for committing the crimes, whether that's the pimp or whether that is the person who's buying the service. And until those names are exposed and in the public domain, nothing is gonna change. Nothing. And it's not good enough. It's absolutely not good enough. I need to check and see what the statistics are, but I know they're pretty horrendous, and they're horrendous to such a degree that it's very difficult. You can slip into what's called cognitive dissonance, which means that the brain just won't accept the numbers. You think, nah, that can't be true. They're so shocking that you're like, nah, really? Nah. But they're horrendous. Ask Jo, she'll tell you what the statistics are. Yeah, so I don't know how I feel about the Maxwell case. I'm glad that she's got sentenced. I'm glad that she's still alive to live out her sentence. And I think she gave a speech and said how sorry she was for what the women had gone through, which is an interesting dynamic as well. And I need to watch and listen to see how she's saying it. But I think what would really help those women, the victims, and her actually, is to fight for getting those names released. That's how, if she wants to really help now, that's what she needs to do. She needs to, in my humble opinion, actually fight for getting those names released, for releasing them. for letting the world know who those people were, who the offenders were. That's where she could really make a difference. Because she's not going to see the light of day now anyway. 20 years, I mean, she's 50, that's going to be 70. If she really wants to do something, she really wants to make an impact and a difference, she can fight. And maybe she won't live through the process, who knows? I know there's a lot of speculation about he was knocked off, Epstein, and maybe she would be as well. However, at least she would have tried. But that does mean she has to admit that what she did, I mean really admit and really believe that what she did was wrong. Whether she was groomed or not, she'll reach a point where a realization that what happened is wrong and what her role is within that. Yeah, so very interesting conversation around human trafficking. And then when I saw that post about Maxwell, yeah, but your kids aren't going to be safe until people start releasing names and people are prosecuted. Then people will start to understand really how bad the situation is. Isn't that cheery subject? Thanks for listening. Goodbye.